These are MSCHF's new sneakers they just released today, and clearly they're an artistic interpretation of the Air Force Ones. So we're gonna dissect and cut these apart and test them to see if they're just an artistic interpretation of a wearable sneaker, or if they're actually a wearable sneaker, and maybe which one's better out of the two. Raid Shadow Legends just celebrated their 3rd anniversary as one of the top RPG games out there. With hundreds of artifacts to equip and over 600 champions, you can build your own team and develop your champions with Raid your way. Use my QR code or the links below to download Raid yourself to your mobile or PC. It's a free game, so try it out. And there's just a ton happening with Raid this month. They've got special events every single day, including an entirely new event for the summer solstice called the Path of Light. Last year, Raid added a whole new faction, the Shadowkin, and they're a tribe of warriors from the Far East, recently liberated from the reign of evil, but that doesn't mean they're the good guys either. And for me, it's one of the coolest looking factions in the game. And another great addition to the game is the Doom Tower, 120 layers of bosses and doom and terror, where you can try out your characters and test your skills against the Doom Tower. And if that wasn't enough, Raid is also running a special Deliana Chase event where existing players can get their hands on the amazing Deliana, a brand new legendary champion from the High Elves faction. The gifts keep coming. All new players listen up. Once you're in game, just enter the promo code MyDeliana to get 50 XP brews to max your legendary hero Deliana to level 50, as well as tons of silver. Promo code is available from May 23rd to July 20th. All new players get the free starter pack that's worth almost $30. To kickstart your game, you get the free champion Tayrell, 20k silver, 1 XP boost, 1 energy refill, 1 ancient shard so you can summon a champion as soon as you get in the game, and that's all for free. So give Raid a try. It's a free download and it helps the channel out by helping the sponsors, and thanks again to Raid. So who is MSCHF if you don't already know? And you probably know them, you just don't realize you know them. Well, Wikipedia calls them an American art collective based in Brooklyn, New York. MSCHF has produced a wide range of artworks ranging from browser plugins to sneakers to physical products, social media channels, and photographs. And we'll put some up behind me of some of their more popular stuff and some of the more creative things that you probably saw but you didn't realize was MSCHF. And this isn't their very first sneaker. You're probably familiar with a few of their other releases, like the Wavy Babies that Vans sent them a cease and desist letter for. And they also released the Satan shoe that I guarantee you've heard of, even if you're a boot guy. They're the collaboration they did with Lil Nas X that had a little drop of blood in the sole that Nike came after them and threatened to sue them. And before they could ship the 666 pairs, Nike shut that down. And so part of this video is to see if we can determine if this is close enough to the Air Force Ones that Nike's gonna come after MSCHF again and threaten to sue them and try to drown these guys out. And MSCHF did send us these shoes, but it's not a sponsored video. They didn't pay us for this video or anything. They just sent us the shoes, and I thought you guys would like to see what's inside of them. So starting with the leather first, both of these shoes are chrome tanned leather, and you can always tell it's chrome tanned, especially on white shoes. If you look at the cross section, if you see that bluing on the inside, that means it's a real leather and it's a chrome tanned leather. And both of them have a fairly heavy pigment on top that gives it that even white finish, but they're very different in the temper of the leather. So temper is basically ranging from firm all the way down to glovey. So, and tumbled is a lot closer to that glovey, soft, malleable temper. And sometimes people confuse tumbled leather with the quality of leather, but all tumbled leather is they take a firm leather or just a regular leather, throw it into basically a giant dryer without any heat, and it tumbles it around, softens the leather up, loosens up those fibers, giving it the pebbled look and making it a more malleable leather. So the Super Normals by MSCHF is a very tumbled leather. It's super soft, super malleable. And the Air Force Ones is a fairly firm temper leather. The pros and cons of each: obviously the tumbled leather is softer, it's easier to break in. And one thing that is nice about tumbled leather, especially for you guys that are obsessed with creasing sneakers, tumbled leather doesn't seem like it creases and doesn't show creases as much because it's essentially pre-creased before it's even put on the shoe, versus a firm temper leather. It just creases from the first time you even look at it. One isn't necessarily more durable than the other. You could make the case that one was more durable, but that really comes down to more of the thickness and the quality of the leather. And so that's what we're gonna test next by just cutting a couple little spots. Actually, I'm not gonna do a brand new one. I got a cut in half pair of Air Force Ones already. The Air Force Ones, if we get the caliper in there, about 1.5 millimeters thick. And then if we move to the MSCHFs, what is it called? Super Normal, and 1.5 as well. So basically the exact same thickness of leather. But what about the leather quality? Where does it lie on that cross section of the leather cross section? Does it have that sought after grain pattern that gives the leather its structure and durability? or is it just a suede with the really heavy coating of plastic on top like we see from Nike sometimes. So starting with the Nike again, this test I'm basically just gonna bend the leather a little bit so I can get my knife and just barely trim off that very top layer to see if we can see any pores or any hair follicles telling us that it has the grain pattern in it. So you can see some of the little hair pores in there and some of the grain pattern. So this has that grain pattern in there. As for the MSCHFs, let's do this one. This one's a little bit harder to cut because it is tumbled. It doesn't have quite that firm surface that the Air Force One leather does. But if I get that just pulled off, this one also has a grain pattern. So both of these leathers are from that higher quality cross section of leather. Both have the grain in them and both are chrome tanned. But now the question is, and then maybe the one real decider between these two, is how much cheap fake pigment is on top of each. That's where the lighter comes in. So if I put the lighter on it, you can see that the Air Force One is really starting to shrink and curl up and start smoking. And so as you can see, that very distinct layer of plastic they put on top that they put the fake leather print into that ends up flaking off, that makes this type of shoe crease even easier. Pretty heavy layer on there. Then if we move to the MSCHFs, start burning one of these panels. It looks like there's not much of a coating at all on the top of there. I even noticed that when I was kind of scraping off the top layer. It seems like it's just pigmented. It's not an actual heavy layer of polyurethane on top like the Air Force Ones. This is a lot closer to a natural leather, just with a heavy pigment on top, no plastic. And that to me is a sign of a higher quality leather because they're not trying to hide the flaws. They're not trying to cover it up and make it look like a perfect leather. The leather is what it is. And so the leather generally is fairly close in thickness and quality and type of leather, but to me the MSCHFs has it as just a little bit because it doesn't have that really terrible top coat of polyurethane on top. So just on the outside, it seems like MSCHFs might just be a little bit higher quality than the Air Force Ones, but it's really hard to tell until you get them cut in half because the guts are what really matter. Do they have an air unit? Do they have the wedge of foam with the air unit encapsulated in it? Is it built the exact same way? I feel like this is what might get them in hot water. So let's cut them in half. All right, we got them cut in half. So let's see if the insides are the same, a potential lawsuit, or maybe they took the air unit and just made it really wavy and all over the place. Who knows? Let's find out. So no air unit and no foam. It seems like MSCHF might be in the clear on this one. There's no swooshes anywhere. There's no proprietary technology. But you never know. Nike seems to be a little petty recently with their lawsuits and going after people and trying to protect their brand. But at the same time, I feel like it only benefits MSCHF to get sued by these big companies and have Big Brother try to take down the small artistic brand. Obviously, it probably costs them a lot of money, but when it really comes down to it, they're kind of a publicity-based brand. And so when they get sued, I don't know if it's part of the plan, but it seems like one of the best ways you could promote a knocked off version of one of the most popular shoes in the world is by getting sued by the most popular brand in the world. So even if they do get sued, I feel like it's only going to benefit them in the long run anyway. For instance, how many non-sneakerheads had heard of MSCHF before Nike sued them for the Satan shoes where they had a little drop of blood in them? I feel like even people that didn't know anything about boots and shoes were hitting me up being like, you need to get a pair of those Satan shoes, they have blood in them, cut them in half. So to me it seems like it could just be a very expensive marketing expense if they do get sued. So whatever. So which out of the two are the better quality between the Air Force Ones and the MSCHF Super Normals? Well, for the MSCHF, its advantages are a slightly better leather. It's the tumbled leather, it's a little bit higher quality. It has a better insole, and the foam on the inside is a little bit better as well. Where the Air Force Ones have the advantage in having that world-renowned air unit and encased in the foam, and the Nike brand. So they both have some positives and some negatives, and it kind of depends on what you value most. So to me, the advantages of each kind of cancel out each other, and I feel like they're just on par with each other. The main difference is the price between the two. The MSCHFs are $145, where you can get the Air Force Ones at $100. So for that $45, you're paying for this wild design, you're paying for the rarity, you're paying for the controversy and the exclusivity of this shoe, and you're paying for the small batch. Because think about having to make the dies for each of these outsoles and all the different brands. They're big aluminum or steel dies. That's got to be expensive compared to Nike. They probably had this die made every year for the last 30 years. You're also paying for someone to painstakingly sew around every single one of these curves and lines, versus the mass-produced Air Force One that these are just mostly straight lines, and they're probably done by computers or people that are treated like computers and robots. And you're paying for the artistic interpretation of the Air Force Ones. And is this a wearable piece of art? Is this a wearable interpretation of the Air Force Ones? I think it clearly is. All the components are basically the same. This is that same structured columned outsole we've seen in a lot of shoes. It's very similar to the platform shoes that we cut apart. It's a wearable shoe. And the thing is, I don't think MSCHF is making a killing on these shoes by any means, because this box alone, we just quoted out a similar box for our harnesses and some of the products we have coming out, and they were like 50 bucks. So the box alone has got to be $50. And all the labor costs included in making the shoe, and the tooling and everything to make this small batch, I would honestly be surprised if they even turn a profit without getting sued. So I personally like them. I like what MSCHF is doing. I like the wacky stuff they're always coming out with, and the weird apps and all the... It's like if a kid had reign of pop culture and just was memeing pop culture and doing whatever they want, how they wanted, and I kind of love that. Did that taint my review a little bit? Maybe a little bit.
Is your mouth tiny and small? Then why don't you come down a little bit?
So that's kind of part of it. But looking at it strictly, there's nothing in this shoe that would make me at all concerned about the functionality of it for $145. So let me know what you guys think, and thank you so much for all your support. It means a lot. It's what allows us to get exclusive access to stuff like this, which it makes these videos really fun to make, because no one, like, the other people have exclusive access, but no one's cutting them in half. And I love doing that and really analyzing these shoes. So it means a lot to me and everyone with the Anvil crew. So thank you guys. See ya.